Hi everyone, Crista Cowan here with another episode of the Barefoot Genealogist. Happy New Year! That means that it is time for a new set of genealogy goals. So I've been doing these videos for 7 years now, and for the last several years, at the beginning of every year, I go over my own personal genealogy goals with you. Now, I do not expect any of you to take my goals and make them your own. And some of you may not care about my goals. However, I share them in the spirit that you will be inspired to write some goals of your own as it relates to your family history discoveries. So here's how this format goes. I'm going to review last year's goals and just give you an accountability report of how I did. And then I'm going to share with you my 2019 goals. And hopefully, like I said, you'll be inspired to create some of your own. If you do, I would love to hear about it. So please be sure to comment here on the YouTube video and share information about the goals that you're setting for your own family history discoveries in 2019. With that, let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, let's start this with a little bit of an Ancestry year in review. Now, I think this is important because some of this information might help inform some of the goals that you set. Just knowing what's available and what changes are happening, I think is really important to help set some of those goals. So Ancestry last year, so in 2018, added more than 260 million historical records to our website. So we now have a total of 20 billion records. Those 20 billion historical records cover 80 countries of origin. Last year, we also added 10 million family trees. So we went from 90 million family trees to more than 100 million family trees that are now available on Ancestry. And there are now 11 billion connections being made. All of those numbers are just kind of mind-boggling. Just the 20 billion records alone is super exciting to me. The fact that 260 million records were added to Ancestry last year means that there are new discoveries just waiting for me, information that I haven't even begun to explore yet. So that's super exciting. Now on the DNA front, last year we had about 6 million people who had taken a DNA test through Ancestry at that point. Now more than 10 million people have DNA tested. Now that's important because it means that there's exponentially that many more discoveries that are possible to be made. We'll talk a little bit more about how I'm using that a little later in the show. Now, Ancestry also has about 1 billion searches performed on our website every month. And there have been 17 million downloads of the free Ancestry apps. If you're not using one of those apps, you want to go to your app store and check those out for your mobile devices. Those apps are free. They connect to your Ancestry account and you can access that information when you're on the go. I use it quite a bit when I'm with my family just to share information when we're sitting around a dinner table or whatever the case may be. So that's kind of the Ancestry year in review, just to give you an idea of where we're going, where we've come from. Now let's just talk about how I've broken out my genealogy goals. You can do them however you choose. This kind of worked for me last year, or in 2017, so I did it in 2018. I'm going to do it again in 2019. I've broken it out into these 4 areas. So one is discoveries, like the actual research discoveries that I want to make in my family tree. Another one is education. I've learned that the more I learn, the less I realize I know. And I want to be able to increase my knowledge and my skills so that I can make more discoveries faster. And I've also found that the more you know about family history research, that the more enjoyable the whole process is altogether. So really excited about that. I also set service goals. So the genealogy community really is a community of people. I have developed dear friendships with people that I only know through family history, whether it's through my job or going to genealogy conferences or participating in online Facebook groups. And so I want to be able to give service back to the community in a meaningful way. And then I created this category a couple years ago because I have found that in my life, when I have routines, I do better. If there's something that I know that I'm expected to do at a certain cadence, then it's more likely to get done. And so I set a separate category here for my genealogy routines, and you'll get to see what some of those things are. So let's talk first about the discoveries category. I set a goal in 2018 to identify the parents of John O'Brien. If you've spent time with me in some of my other videos, you know that he's been our family's brick wall for decades and decades, and there's lots of information that we've been able to collect about him, but we haven't been able to identify his parents. And I did not accomplish that goal this year, so we're not starting off my accountability report here too well, but I did use some DNA evidence. So my mother and her sisters and some of the first cousins on that side of the family, looking at clusters of shared DNA matches. And based on that and some research that I've done into the family trees of some of those shared matches, it looks like we have identified a potential mother for John O'Brien. Now, the exciting thing for me about this is that this woman was born in Ireland, had all of her children in Ireland, and did not immigrate to the United States until she was in her 70s, which means that John O'Brien, if she is his mother, was born in Ireland. And we always suspected that. There were family stories. He used to talk about being brought over to the United States as a young man with his father. But then in other records, he told people he was born in Ohio. So lots of conflicting information. And so we're really positive and excited about this particular trail. So the other thing that we accomplished towards this goal last year as a family was we found one of my mother's first cousins that had been essentially missing from contact with the family for 50 years or more. And one of the cousins drove to where she lives and was able to DNA test her. And so we're waiting on those results, and that's really exciting. And then I had the opportunity to go to Ireland this year. I went on a Ancestry Genealogist heritage tour. If you're interested in those, you can go check those out on their website, Ancestry Genealogist. They took a heritage tour to Ireland this year, and I participated in that and learned quite a bit about Irish research and was able to write up a research plan for doing research into this potential mother in Ireland to see if I can find documentary evidence of her being the mother of John O'Brien, and then see if we can't figure out who his father is. So while I did not accomplish my 2018 goal in its entirety of identifying both of John's parents, I do feel like I made some really good progress, more progress than has been made in decades prior to that. Now, the other goal that I set for myself was to determine the parents of my John Woodruff in my family. So John is let's see if I can remember the relationship. John O'Brien's daughter married John Woodruff's granddaughter. So these families are a little bit tied up as it relates to the DNA, but I was able to review all of the DNA evidence as I was sorting out the matches and using those shared matches features. I also was able to review all the documentary evidence, so the family trees where other people have decided they know who John Woodruff's parents are. I reviewed those. I reviewed the census records that we have for John from his marriage forward in his life until his death. I went back through some of the family stories. In particular, there was a family story written by a nephew of John's back in the 1800s when the family left Indiana and went down to Arkansas. And he talks about his Uncle Jack and Aunt Lib, so John and his wife Elizabeth, and there's some family stories there that I was able to glean some evidence from, and then of course that DNA evidence. And so again, did not fully complete this particular research goal, but I feel like I made some great progress and was able to write up a research plan for what I need to do in order to collect additional evidence. And that includes additional DNA evidence. So there's some branches of the family tree, so other children of John and Elizabeth who have descendants that I've been able to identify that I am going to invite to DNA test. And then there are some descendants of the suspected parents of John, through some of their other children. I've been able to identify them, and we're going to invite them to DNA test as well to see if we can't use both genetic evidence and then some of the additional records that I intend to track down to prove that. So that's how I did on my 2018 goals. So of course my 2019 goals as it relates to my research on those particular families is just to execute on those research plans that I wrote up. And that's going to take a little bit of work, and hopefully I'll be able to involve some of my other family members in that. Now, a new goal that I'm setting for this year has to do with one of my ancestors named Asa Wade. Asa Wade is a fourth great-grandfather of mine, I think, and maybe a third. And he we have a lot of DNA matches that are shared matches with other people on this same line that have Wades in their family tree in the same place where Asa was. As a matter of fact, they're in the exact same county. And so I need to collect all of those people. I need to make sure that the research in their family trees is accurate so that they've identified the right ancestors. And then I need to write up a research plan for what further evidence I need to locate, particularly in this county in Georgia where Asa received land and where he lived and where some of these other Wade families lived. So I need to see what records are still available and write up a research plan about how I'm going to access those records and list out which records I'm going to go and try and obtain to see if I can make a connection between these families. Now, this gets a little tricky because it's very likely that there is no record anywhere that states so-and-so is the father of Asa Wade. So I'm going to have to use a lot of evidence analysis and correlation of that evidence. And it's going to be indirect evidence in order to come to a conclusion about who his father is at a minimum. But I'm really excited to dive into that and to strengthen my skills in that particular area. And then the other research goal that I've set this year has to do with the Cowan branch of my family tree. So I think I found where my third great-grandfather, George Cowan, comes from in Ireland as part of this trip I took to Ireland this past year. And while I was there, we had an afternoon where we were driving through County Down, and there was a historical society that we saw. And so we just stopped, my brother and I, and we went in and we talked to them. And they do have resources, but the archivist was not there at the time that we were there. And so I need to contact the archivist there at the Historical Society, see what information they have, and to see if there's any information about the Cowan family there in County Down. And then I also want to create a DNA testing plan for who else in that Cowan family I can test to collect some additional DNA evidence. So really the theme of this year is executing on research plans into historical records, collecting DNA evidence, and then using every analytical skill that I've developed and maybe developing some additional ones in order to use all of that evidence together to come to some genealogical conclusions. And I'm super excited about that. Okay, we're going to buzz through these next three categories fairly quickly. My discoveries or research categories always take the most time, and they're always the ones that I'm the most excited about, so I tend to talk about them a lot. But let's just talk briefly about some of the goals that I set in 2018 for my education. And again, hopefully this will spark some ideas for some things you want to do. Now, I have found that one of the best ways that I learn is by teaching. And so I had a goal last year to create 6 new presentations for conferences and genealogy events that I had the opportunity to speak at. In fact, I created 8 new presentations in addition to the 21 YouTube videos, episodes of the Barefoot Genealogist that I put together last year. And so I'm always learning new things. I'm always reaching out to experts in the field, individuals who have specialties in certain areas where I want to learn more in order to put together presentations and information for you. And I learned so much this year by doing that. I also set a goal last year to attend at least one class at each major genealogy conference I attend. Now that gets a little tricky because typically I'm speaking in classrooms or presenting demos in the booth or working in the Ancestry booth at these genealogy conferences. But I did make a point of finding at least one class at every conference that I thought would fill a gap in my skills, And I was able to attend a lot of classes, a lot of really great classes from some amazing presenters, some brilliant educators, but more importantly, some brilliant genealogists this last year. And then I set a goal to listen to some webinars from some of the academic genealogical organizations. So in this case, the Board for Certification of Genealogists and the Association of Professional Genealogists. They do webinars for their membership, and I was able to participate in or listen to some of those. So this year, I've got a couple of interesting goals around education. The first one is that I am planning on launching a website the first week of February. It's CristaCowan.com, and there's a couple of reasons that I want to do this as it relates to education. The first one is I just want to make sure that I have a really public inventory of what presentations I have available to present. I get asked to come and speak at local genealogy events and national genealogy conferences, and I just want to be able to more readily pull from that list. I also think that that forcing me to publicly put this list out there, it will help me to see where some of the holes in my teaching opportunities are so that I can see what other things I need to learn. And then, you may not know this, but one of the things that professional genealogists have to do is keep track of their continuing education. And so I have little scraps of paper everywhere with lists of classes I've taken at various conferences or webinars I've attended or whatever the case may be. And so I just want to create a public list of all the conferences and institutes that I've attended and the other education that I've obtained so that I have some public accountability there. And then for the sake of your education, one of the things that I want to do is just create curated lists of videos. So I did 21 Barefoot Genealogist episodes last year. This year I finished 7 years of these episodes, and that's over 400 total episodes. And one of the things that new people often ask me is, well, which one should I watch first? Or is there an order to these? And there really isn't, but there are some groups of things that make sense. So on the Ancestry YouTube channel, which is where you're probably watching this, all of the videos that I create are just dumped into a singular playlist called The Barefoot Genealogist, and that works. Ancestry's YouTube channel has playlists for different things. My videos are not the only videos, obviously, that Ancestry is producing. And so I just want to create a space where people can come and they can say, well, I'm interested in learning more about X. And I can say, okay, then watch these 4 videos in this order. So I'm hoping to put that together. That probably won't be available right at launch of the website, but certainly will give me an opportunity to do that and to put that out there publicly. And then I have a couple of very specific skills that I want to further develop this year. So rather than just attending a class at every genealogy conference I attend this year, I want to specifically look for classes in colonial Virginia research. That's a real hole in my skills. Research in every place is a little bit different because the laws were different and the kinds of records that were created are different. And so I want to make sure that I really understand the nuances of that, because there are a couple of branches of my family tree that are leading me back to that place. And when I get there, I want to be prepared to be able to tackle that research. And then, based on what I told you earlier about my research goals or my discovery goals this year, I really want to look for classes on advanced evidence analysis. The further back in time you go, the less likely it is that you will find a record that gives you the answer to your research question. So direct evidence becomes really scarce, which means you have to collect all of the indirect evidence, and then you have to be able to analyze that evidence in such a way that you can come to a conclusion or that you can find the answer that you're looking for. Now, it is certainly a skill that I have developed, but one that could use a little bit of skill sharpening, if you will. And so I'm excited to look specifically for classes and webinars and other learning opportunities to help me sharpen that particular skill. Okay, let's talk about my 2018 service goals. I'll just put them all up here at once. In 2018, the goal that I set was to solve 1 pro bono adoptee case per month. So I am one of the researchers on the TV show Long Lost Family and have developed some skills and methodologies for being able to take somebody's DNA match list and very quickly figure out who their biological parents are based on the information that's provided there and research into the family trees of their matches, whether their matches actually have published their family trees or not. And I was able to take those skills, and not only did I meet that goal, but I exceeded it. I solved at least 2 pro bono adoptee cases every month. And one month I solved 5. A couple of months I solved 3 or 4. So that's something that I just find super fulfilling, to be able to reconnect people with their biological heritage if that's something that they desire to know. And then another goal that I set in 2018 that I was able to exceed, I believe the goal that I set was to teach 6 pro bono classes, so 1 every other month, for a small genealogical society or organization. So Ancestry will pay for me to go out and speak if an organization is holding a conference or an event where there's going to be a couple hundred people or more. And my calendar fills up pretty quickly, and I have somebody that schedules that for me. But I get requests all the time from smaller organizations who only have, 30 or 40 or 70 people that come to their monthly meetings, but they're looking for a presenter, and they can't usually afford to fly me out and put me up at a hotel and pay for the cost of that. And so I wanted to be able to give back to the community in a way, even to some of those smaller societies and organizations. And so I was able to calendar in 8 different events this past year, where I was able to present to some of these smaller organizations on my own. Now, I'm still talking about Ancestry when I go out there, but I still represent the company, and I'm still super excited to talk about family history and the resources that are available and how to use the website. And I was able to do that, but unfortunately, Ancestry wasn't able to sponsor me for those. And so this enabled me to give back to the community in that way. And then this wasn't on my 2018 Genealogy Goals video last January, but it was a goal that I set a few months into the year. I had the opportunity to work with an organization here in Utah and start a monthly family history clinic. So on the 3rd Saturday of every month, we all get up bright and early. And if you know me, you know how much I do not love mornings, but from 8:30 to 9:30 on the 3rd Saturday of every month, I show up and I teach a 45-minute or so lesson about a topic that the group has asked me to present on. And then we have a 2-hour open clinic where we just set up tables and we bring our laptops and we sit around the room and we work on our family history, and people are able to ask questions and to get help as they need it. And that's been really exciting and really successful. And so I want to be able to continue that. I think, we usually get between 20 and 30 people there, and I want to be able to expand that this next year so that we get an average of 75 attendees every single month. I think it's a really great opportunity when people get together and work on family history together and are able to share skills and knowledge. It kind of mimics what I do here at Ancestry. I work on a team of researchers where we sit closely together, and usually we're all working on our own specific research projects for whatever TV show or commercial or Ancestry project that we're working on. But we're able to bounce ideas off of each other. We're able to ask each other if we have ideas about resources that maybe we can't think of to access, or what records might exist, or what the law was at a certain time, whatever the case may be. I work in a really collaborative genealogical environment, and my goal was to recreate that for other people so that they had a place to come and do this collaborative genealogy work, even when they're working on their own specific family trees independently. So if you live in Utah and you want more information about that, feel free to leave a comment. And like I said, it's the 3rd Saturday of every month. And if you leave a comment here, I'd be happy to give you the details if you want to come join us. And then you'll help me reach my goal of upping our attendance. Okay, the other 2 goals that I set in service, I want to continue this 1 pro bono adoptee case per month. And so I've left that on my list going forward. And then this year, because I have so many other travel and speaking obligations, I'm only going to be teaching 4 pro bono classes. I've Of course, if I can slide a few extras in there, I will certainly try to do that. Last up is the routines. So I mentioned that routines are just things that I want to make sure that I do on a consistent basis. And so I need to build in routines. And so one of the things is I set a goal to spend 3 to 4 hours on the phone with my dad every Sunday evening reviewing our DNA matches. Now, we've successfully been doing this for more than 2 years. And this year was a little tricky, but we managed to do it anyway. Even with my travel schedule, I called him one Sunday from Ireland. I called him one Sunday from Poland. One Sunday we were both at my brother's house in the Netherlands, and we just, let everybody else in the family play a board game on the table next to us, and we busted out our laptops and got to work on our family history. And I just love this time with my dad. It's really important that I get to spend that time with him, but also it's really fulfilling that what we're working on is something that's important to both of us. And we've been so successful at this and so pleased with the results that we are actually teaching a class together at Roots Tech at the end of February here in Salt Lake City about collaborative family history research and different ways that you can collaborate together, and we'll share some more of our experience with that. So we were successful in doing that. I think we missed one Sunday. My sister and brother flew to Portland to spend a week with my parents, and they were out at the beach for the weekend, and my dad did not have great Wi-Fi, and so we did not do it that one Sunday. But other than that, we were successful. And what we do during that time is we review our new DNA matches of the week, and then we try to document the connection between each of the DNA matches. Whether they have a family tree or not, it doesn't matter. If they have a small family tree, we just use the shared matches, and we do the research ourselves, and we're usually able to figure out the connection. Now, some Sunday nights we just figure out 1 or 2 matches, and some Sunday nights we're able to figure out 20 or 30 matches. It just kind of depends on how much research has to be done. But we enjoy our time together, and in 2.5 years, we've been able to identify how we are related to 1,267 of our matches, which is really exciting. Now, the next goal that I set in this kind of arena was to contact my DNA matches once I've figured out how we're related and share that information with them. And I did not do well in this goal. I would say about 1 out of every 25 matches that I figured out, I sent a message to. So I need to be better about that. So that's my accountability for that, was I didn't do well. I did back up my family history files once a month, so I was successful in that, and I would encourage you to also set up a routine to do that. And then the final goal that I set up in the routines for 2018 was to respond to my Ancestry messages within 2 weeks. So people are sending out Ancestry messages all the time. Many of those messages are some of my DNA matches or people who have found information in my family tree that they want to provide me with more accurate information about. Sometimes I get it wrong, and so they want to correct me. Sometimes it's just people who want to know if I have additional information more than what's in my tree. Lots of reasons I get messages. Sometimes I just get messages from various people who've watched my videos and have found me on Ancestry and have specific questions. And so my goal was to respond to those messages. And I set aside every other Friday to be able to do that. Now, life happened. And I would say that I unfortunately only responded to about 1 out of every 4 of the messages that I received. And it's mostly just because I open the messages, I read them, and then I realize, you know what, this is going to take me maybe 2 or 3 hours to pull together the information they need or to review the information they've provided in order to give them a meaningful response. And I get a little bit overwhelmed about that, and then I just don't respond, or I put it on the to-do pile and then it gets buried. So I tend to respond to the easier messages first, and then when a person who's messaged me responds and we go back and forth, I tend to respond to those a little bit quicker. So part of that is on me. I get overwhelmed easily, and I need to be better about that. Part of that is people sending way too much information in an initial email, and then I don't feel like I can respond until I've digested it all and done all the research. And maybe what I need to do is just respond and let them know that that's what I'm doing. So I'm going to be better about that. I'm going to continue to back up my family history files once a month in 2018. I do that on the first of every month. You can do it whenever you choose, but again, I would encourage you to do that. I use Family Tree Maker, for those of you who aren't aware. I use Family Tree Maker as my desktop software because it fully syncs with my Ancestry online tree. And so then I have a copy of my tree and all my records on my computer, and then I back up that file from my computer to the cloud, and then also create a external hard drive backup of that as well. I am going to commit again to respond to my Ancestry messages within 2 weeks. Hopefully every other Friday I'll be able to block out some time to do that again. And then I've expanded this family goal a little bit. So I'm going to continue to spend those 3 or 4 hours each Sunday evening with my dad, reviewing my DNA matches and documenting those connections. But my sister also asked if we could spend 1 or 2 hours together every Sunday afternoon working on our family history. And so we decided that when we get home from church on Sunday afternoons, we're just going to grab our lunch and then we're going to sit down for an hour or so. And what we're going to do is go through what's called a data error report. So on Family Tree Maker, one of the things that you can do is you can generate a list of errors in your tree. And there are still errors in my tree. Things like a woman who was too young to be the mother of the children that I have listed for her. And sometimes that happens because I fat-fingered a number and typed something wrong. Sometimes that happens because I've assigned the children of the first wife to the children of the second wife. Lots of reasons why various errors occur, and that's just an example of one type of error. And so my sister and I are going to spend some time doing that. And then in the process of cleaning up those errors, as we discovered this last Sunday when we started this, there is some additional research that we stumble across, people with missing dates and incomplete information that we need to go flesh out. So we've already got one Sunday down and we're excited to do that. And then I'm also going to recommit to contacting my DNA matches, just sending them a quick Ancestry message once I've discovered how we're related so that they're aware that that's a thing. So many of our DNA matches have taken the DNA test because they're just kind of dipping their toe in the water. They want to know about their heritage, but they're not sure, what it all involves. And if I can share this information with them, maybe it will spark them to start a family tree or start a dialogue with me. And who knows what treasures or photos or stories they may have that I don't have about our common ancestors, or what other people they might help because I inspire them to start a family tree. And then just as kind of a little bonus, I've set this silly little goal for myself. I would love to meet my DNA matches. I think that would be really a cool thing to do. Here in Utah, of my 4 grandparents, one of them has ancestry here in Utah. And I have a grandfather who was from California. And I travel around the country for family history conferences to various places where the other branches of my family tree have been. And so I have DNA cousins all over the place. And so I think it would be fun to meet them and maybe take a picture with them, and I'll post those on my Instagram feed as I discover people. So if you're on Instagram, please hop over and follow me at Crista Cowan, and you can follow my adventures in keeping this goal, and we'll see how I do this year. Well, that is all I have prepared for you today. Hopefully that was useful information. Hopefully I didn't overwhelm you with some of my goals. I tend to set very lofty goals, sometimes that stretch me a little bit. And as you can see from my report for 2018, I don't always reach them, but they pull me further along than if I hadn't set them at all. So I would love to hear what your goals are. I would love to have you comment here on the YouTube channel about what goals you're setting for 2019, and then come and check back in occasionally and report on how you're doing. Or send me a DM on Instagram if you follow me there, and let me know how you're doing with your goals, what goals you're setting. And in particular, I'd love to hear more about what videos I can create in 2019 to help you reach those goals. So until next time, this is Crista Cowan. Have fun climbing your family tree.